Discernment is one of the greatest gifts you can ever develop in life, because not everyone who stands beside you is standing ours for you. Some people only appear when the lights are on, when the applause is loud, when your blessings seem visible enough for them to want to be part of the picture. They clap, they smile, they say all the right words, but their heart carries a quiet jealousy that whispers every time you rise. It's easy to assume that every cheer means support, but sometimes applause is just noise that distracts you from seeing the truth. There are people who will come close, not to build you, but to study you. They are not inspired by your strength. They are intimidated by it. And the sooner you start paying attention to energy instead of words, the faster you will learn who's walking with you and who's just watching your steps. Discernment isn't about judging people harshly. It's about protecting your purpose. You have to learn to read beyond smiles, beyond compliments, beyond shared memories. Because fake people know how to mimic closeness. They know how to say, "I'm proud of you," while secretly hoping you fall. They know how to show up when things are good, but disappear the moment your soul starts to ache. They drain you quietly with small doses of doubt and subtle shade, until you start questioning your own worth. And the sad part is, sometimes you keep them around because you crave the comfort of familiar faces, even when those faces no longer align with who you're becoming. But there comes a time when you must stop confusing familiarity with loyalty. Everyone who started with you isn't destined to finish with you. Discernment grows in silence. It grows when you stop explaining yourself to people who pretend to misunderstand you. It grows when you sit in prayer and ask for clarity instead of revenge. It grows when you realize that peace speaks louder than proof. You don't have to prove who's fake and who's real. Time always does that for you. The truth always reveals itself when you stop rushing to justify why certain people treat you the way they do. Sometimes God allows the mask to slip, not to break your heart, but to free you from misplaced loyalty. You keep asking why certain friendships or connections fell apart. But if you look deeper, you'll see that the ending was protection. You can't keep growing if you're surrounded by people who only water your ego, but starve your spirit. The right people don't just flatter you. They challenge you, hold you accountable, and want to see you win, even when they're not in the picture. But fake people, they want to be near your fire without carrying their own light. They'll warm their hands on your passion, your drive, your purpose, and then complain when the flame gets too hot. You owe it to yourself to recognize who is adding to your energy and who is subtracting from it. Every conversation leaves a trace. Some people leave you drained. Some leave you inspired. Pay attention to that. Your body knows when energy isn't right. Your spirit knows when presence feels heavy. Stop silencing that inner warning just to keep peace with people who don't deserve proximity. When you start using discernment, you'll notice something powerful. Your circle may get smaller, but your peace grows deeper. You'll realize that it's better to walk alone in truth than be surrounded by crowds built on deception. Discernment helps you see beyond the surface, beyond charisma, beyond charm. It teaches you to value consistency over performance, because fake people perform love, but real ones can practice it. Fake people perform friendship, but real ones show it. Discernment is what helps you see that difference before it costs you your peace. You don't have to fight fake people. You just have to stop feeding their access. The more you focus on proving your worth to them, the more you delay your healing. Stop explaining your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. Stop giving your energy to conversations that always leave you confused or small. Stop letting guilt convince you to keep connections that no longer feel safe. You're not being cold, you're being clear. And clarity is the language of discernment. It's how you protect your future from the poison of pretense. It's hard, yes, because sometimes fake people come dressed as love. They come with shared laughter, shared memories, shared dreams. But when the time comes to show up for your soul, they vanish. They only loved you when you were manageable, when your growth didn't make them uncomfortable. But the moment your confidence rises, the moment your voice strengthens, they start to withdraw. That's not your loss, that's your revelation. Discernment doesn't just expose others, it elevates ever you. It pulls you out of places where your authenticity had to shrink just to be accepted. The moment you start walking in discernment, you'll stop chasing validation from people who were never meant to see your value. You'll stop waiting for apologies from hearts that were never sincere. You'll learn that silence can be louder than confrontation, and distance can be a form of dignity. Because not everyone who walks away is your enemy. Some are simply completing their assignment in your story. Discernment helps you bless the departure and move forward without bitterness. You'll realize that your peace is too precious, your purpose too powerful, and your time too limited to waste on people who wear masks of friendship while carrying hearts of envy. Peace is something the world tries to sell in pieces, but real peace can't be bought or borrowed. It's built within. It's the kind of calm that doesn't come from things going right, but from knowing you're right where you're meant to be, even when life feels uncertain. Protecting the peace becomes one of the most sacred acts of self-respect you can ever commit to. Because when you start valuing your peace, you start realizing how much chaos you used to call company. You start recognizing how much of your exhaustion came not from work or responsibilities, but from constantly trying to make fake people comfortable while you were uncomfortable. Peace begins when pretending ends. And that's why you can't waste it entertaining energy that doesn't align with your growth. There's a quiet strength in walking away from conversations that only stir confusion. There's wisdom in stepping back from people who know how to smile at your face, but twist your name when you turn away. It takes maturity to understand that not everyone deserves access to your calm. Some people thrive on chaos because they feel most powerful when you're off balance. They poke at your peace to see how easily you'll break, how quickly you'll fold, how deep your insecurities still run. But once you begin to protect your peace, you stop reacting and start discerning. You start realizing that silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. You stop explaining your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. You begin to understand that sometimes the best clapback is not proving a point, but walking in peace so firmly that their drama can't even reach your atmosphere. Peace is sacred because it connects you to purpose. You can't hear divine direction when your life is filled with noise. You can't move forward when you're tied to conversations that constantly pull you backward. Some people will never admit how much they love seeing you in turmoil because it keeps you distracted from realizing your power. That's why protecting your peace means being selective with your circle. You have to start asking, does this person pour into me or pull from me? You'll know the answer by how you feel after spending time with them. Peace doesn't live where you have to shrink to fit. It doesn't survive where you have to apologize for your healing, or where your joy becomes someone else's discomfort. When you protect your peace, you become less available to chaos. You stop showing up for arguments that don't serve your growth. You stop chasing closure from people who were never open in the first place. You stop explaining your vision to those who are committed to misunderstanding it. Protecting your peace isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's the realization that your energy is sacred and that not everyone who wants access to you deserves it. Because fake people don't just waste your time. They drain your spirit. They confuse your focus, distract your purpose, and feed your doubts. They'll make you second guess what you already know about yourself. But once you learn to guard your peace, their manipulation loses power. You stop fighting battles you never needed to fight. You start choosing calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, and faith over frustration. Peace requires pruning. You can't have peace and people pleasing at the same time. You can't be free and still chained to what others expect from you. When you start cutting ties with fake people, your world might feel quieter, but that quiet is holy. It's the sound of your soul resting after years of fighting for acceptance in places you were never meant to belong. Protecting your peace will cost you invitations, friendships, maybe even relationships you once thought were permanent. But the price of keeping peace is always cheaper than the cost of losing yourself. Every time you say no to drama, you say yes to destiny. Every time you walk away from confusion, you walk closer to clarity. Peace isn't passive. It's powerful. It's not about avoiding problems. It's about not allowing problems to control your mind. It's about trusting that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to fix every misunderstanding or defend every decision. The ones who truly know you don't need an explanation. And the ones who thrive on pretending they don't will never accept one. Protecting your peace means understanding the difference between keeping peace and faking peace. Keeping peace is intentional. It's choosing calm through truth. Faking peace is pretending everything's fine while you're breaking inside. One heals you, the other hides you. There will be seasons where you have to isolate to preserve your peace. You'll outgrow circles that once felt like home. You'll stop responding to energy that feels heavy. You'll realize that your peace isn't selfish. It's sacred maintenance for your purpose. Because when your heart is still, you can hear things you missed while you were busy chasing validation. You start feeling guidance instead of guessing your way through life. You see how every distraction was meant to keep you from discovering that your peace is your power. You begin to understand that protecting it is not just emotional, it's spiritual. It's your way of saying, I value what God is doing in me too much to let confusion sit at my table. Peace is a boundary, not a luxury. It's the proof that you've learned to love yourself enough to stop letting chaos be your normal. It's the quiet assurance that you can walk away from fake people without bitterness because you've learned that nothing fake can survive in the presence of real peace. There's a danger in believing that just because someone has always been there, they're meant to stay forever. Time can make us blind. It tricks us into thinking that longevity equals loyalty. That shared history automatically means shared destiny. But the truth is, some people are only meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. Holding on to everyone you started with is like trying to drag old baggage into a new chapter. It slows you down and keeps you tied to what no longer fits your future. You can't step into new blessings while carrying the weight of people who are comfortable with your old pain. Sometimes the most difficult thing to accept is that familiarity is not the same as alignment. You might love them, care for them, pray for them, and still have to walk away because love alone doesn't make someone right for your journey. Some relationships were formed in your brokenness, built on versions of you that no longer exist. When you heal, those same bonds can start to feel heavy because they were created around your wounds, not your wholeness. That's why when growth happens, distance follows. You'll start noticing how certain people no longer understand your silence, your focus, or your peace. They'll call you changed, distant, or prideful, not realizing that you're simply becoming who you were always meant to be. The moment you start choosing purpose over pleasing people, you expose who was connected to your potential and who was attached to your past. Loyalty becomes dangerous when it blinds you to dysfunction. You can love someone deeply and still recognize that their presence is toxic to your progress. You can care about their soul and still understand that they're not healthy for your spirit. But because we're human, we keep trying to fix, to hold, to convince. We stay in circles that drain us because the memories feel safe. We replay old moments to justify why we should keep trying. But at some point you have to ask yourself, am I staying because it's right or because it's familiar? Staying connected to people who no longer align with your purpose doesn't make you loyal. It makes you afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of the unknown, afraid of facing the truth that some chapters end before you're ready to close the book. Growth demands separation. When you start rising, you can't expect everyone to rise with you. Some people prefer the version of you that needed saving because your healing exposes their stagnation. They were comfortable when you were lost because your light didn't challenge their shadows. But once you begin walking in confidence, their comfort starts to crumble. They'll start saying you've changed, but they won't admit that they stayed the same. That's why you have to stop apologizing for evolving. Your destiny doesn't require permission from anyone tied to your history. Sometimes you have to choose between keeping the peace with others and keeping your promise to yourself. History is not enough reason to keep someone in your future. You can't keep allowing the past to dictate your direction. Just because someone was there in your struggle doesn't mean they're equipped for your success. Some people are only assigned to your wilderness, not your promised land. You can't take everyone with you. When God elevates you, the view changes, the air changes, and the altitude demands that you travel lighter. That means releasing hands that refuse to grow, releasing conversations that keep circling the same pain, releasing loyalty that has turned into bondage. It's not betrayal, it's breakthrough. You're not walking away from people, you're walking toward purpose. There's a subtle guilt that comes when you outgrow people who once meant everything to you. You remember how they supported you when no one else did, how they held your hand when you cried, how they celebrated your small wins. And so you hesitate. You feel like you owe them continued access to your life simply because they were there when it all started. But you don't owe anyone your peace just because they knew your pain. People can play a part in your story and still not belong in your next scene. Every connection has an expiration date, and when you ignore that truth, you start rotting in relationships that were meant to release you. Growth changes your language. You start craving depth, not drama. You start needing silence, not noise. You start realizing that you can love people from a distance without allowing them to disturb your direction. You stop trying to fix what's falling apart and start accepting that maybe it's falling apart because you've outgrown it. You can be grateful for the memories and still close the chapter. You can wish them well and still walk away. You can honor the history without sacrificing your destiny. That's maturity. That's spiritual evolution. And maybe the hardest truth of all is that letting go doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you finally understand that not everyone can go where you're going. You can't take someone who's comfortable in circles of chaos and expect them to thrive in places of peace. You can't expect people who were built in your pain to handle your healing. When you cling to old connections out of guilt or fear, you limit what's waiting for you. The next season of your life requires people who push you forward, not those who pull you back with reminders of who you used to be. Some relationships were lessons, not life sentences. Holding on to them doesn't honor the past. It only delays the future. The people meant for your destiny won't make you question your worth. They won't compete with your growth or guilt, trip you for your progress. They'll celebrate your evolution, even when it means they no longer fit into your circle. That's the beauty of divine alignment. It doesn't ask for explanations. It just flows. You'll start noticing how much lighter you feel when you stop fighting to keep what's fading. You'll stop resenting endings when you realize they're often the beginning of something greater. The hands that let you go may hurt you for a while, but one day you'll thank God they did, because not every familiar face belongs in your future. You cannot heal in a place that keeps reopening your wounds. Healing requires safety, an atmosphere where your spirit can breathe, where your emotions are respected, and your growth isn't treated as a threat. Yet so many people stay in spaces that constantly harm them because they confuse endurance with strength. They think that tolerating pain proves loyalty. But you don't have to stay loyal to a place that breaks you. You don't have to keep showing up for relationships that make you question your worth. You don't have to keep explaining your heart to people who only listen long enough to use your truth against you. Healing can't happen in environments that keep reminding you of your scars. It's hard to walk away from what feels familiar even when it's hurting you. There's a strange comfort in the chaos you've learned to survive. You tell yourself it will get better, that maybe if you love harder, try more, pray longer, things will change. But healing isn't about waiting for someone else to stop hurting you. It's about realizing you deserve peace now. You can't rebuild yourself in the same place that broke your trust, drained your joy, or made you forget your own value. You can't heal around people who only see you through the lens of your past mistakes. The longer you stay where you're not valued, the more you teach your soul to settle for pain disguised as love. Healing requires distance, and distance requires courage. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is walk away quietly when your heart still cares. But you can't fix what refuses to acknowledge it's broken. You can't pour yourself out trying to prove your love to people who only see your presence as convenient. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your healing season. Some people are addicted to your broken version because it made them feel needed. They liked you better when you were uncertain, when your confidence was small, when your boundaries were blurry. The moment you start healing, you threaten their control. That's why they'll call your growth selfish or your peace prideful. They can't manipulate a healed heart. Healing is a sacred process. And not everyone can handle the version of you that's learning to love yourself. It's not glamorous. It's lonely, uncomfortable, messy, and often misunderstood. You'll start losing connections that were built on your weakness. You'll start realizing that some people didn't love you. They loved the benefits of your brokenness. They loved how you always showed up, how you overextended yourself, how you stayed quiet to keep peace. But when you start saying no, when you start valuing your peace more than their approval, you'll see who was genuine and who was just convenient. There will be moments when your heart aches for what you left behind. You'll miss the laughter, the memories, even the chaos, because it was once part of your rhythm. But every time you think about going back, remember the pain that pushed you away. Remember the nights you cried in silence, the times you felt small, the moments you questioned if you were enough. That wasn't love, that was survival. Healing invites you to stop surviving and start living. It asks you to release what hurt you so you can make space for what's meant for you. You can't hold both at once. One hand has to let go for the other to receive. Sometimes healing means starting over with yourself. It means rebuilding your confidence, reintroducing yourself to your own reflection, and forgiving the version of you that stayed too long. You don't heal by hating who you were. You heal by honoring her for trying her best with what she knew. You begin to understand that healing isn't a destination. It's a daily decision. It's waking up and choosing peace over pain. Choosing rest over resentment, choosing growth over guilt. It's not linear. Some days you'll feel free, and others you'll feel the sting of loss. But every day you choose yourself is a day closer to wholeness. And while you're healing, you'll notice something powerful. Your standards change. You stop accepting half effort from people. You stop entertaining conversations that leave you drained. You stop chasing closure and start creating boundaries. You no longer tolerate energy that confuses your spirit. Healing teaches you to recognize red flags without painting them pink. It gives you wisdom to know when to walk away without needing an apology. It teaches you that peace is not something you beg for. It's something you protect. You cannot heal in environments that keep you small. You can't grow around people who make you question your worth every time you shine. Healing demands that you choose yourself, even when it feels selfish. It requires that you leave behind the spaces where your tears are ignored and your love is taken for granted. It's not about bitterness. It's about survival. When you start protecting your healing, you begin to understand that distance is not rejection, it's redirection. You're not walking away from people, you're walking toward peace. It's a painful process because your heart still remembers the good moments, but your soul knows it's time to go. Healing often breaks your heart before it restores it. You'll grieve the version of you that tolerated mistreatment. You'll mourn the relationships that once felt unbreakable, but that grief is part of the growth. It's proof that you're shedding layers that no longer serve your purpose. You'll start feeling lighter, stronger, and more rooted in who you are. Healing doesn't come with applause. It comes with clarity. It teaches you that peace is the proof of progress, and silence is often the sign of strength. And through it all, you'll learn to stop begging for love in places that can't give it. You'll stop explaining your worth to hearts that are committed to misunderstanding it. You'll stop shrinking just to be accepted. Because real healing is not about going back to who you were before you got hurt. It's about becoming the person you were always meant to be before pain tried to change you. Real doesn't compete, it complements. When someone is genuine, their presence doesn't threaten your light, it amplifies it. They don't need to dim you to shine. They understand that two flames together only make the room brighter. Real people celebrate your success without secretly comparing it to their own. They clap with pure hearts, not calculating hands. But fake people, they see your growth as a mirror that exposes their own stagnation. They smile at your wins while secretly hoping you lose, because your progress reminds them of the parts of themselves they refuse to face. You'll notice it in the small things. The backhanded compliments, the sudden silence when you share good news, the subtle shift in energy when you start to rise. Real people bring peace. Fake people bring pressure. Real love feels safe. Fake love feels like walking on eggshells. The beauty of authenticity is that it never asks you to compete. It never makes you feel small. Genuine souls want to see you thrive because they understand that your win doesn't take anything away from theirs. When someone is real, they invest in your dreams as if they were their own. They show up without hidden agendas, without keeping score. They don't just appear when things are good. They stand beside you when the world feels heavy. They encourage you when you doubt yourself, and they remind you who you are when life tries to make you forget. That's what it means to compliment, not compete. It's not about outshining each other. It's about shining together. Competition comes from insecurity. Fake people can genuinely celebrate you because deep down they measure your success as their failure. They're not inspired by your light. They're intimidated by it. They watch your life like a silent scoreboard, comparing achievements, relationships, and recognition. And the more you win, the more they distance themselves or disguise jealousy as jokes. But real people have a different spirit. They know that comparison kills connection. They understand that what's meant for you can't threaten what's meant for them. They love you from a place of abundance, not scarcity. They remind you that there's room for everyone to win. That one person's blessing doesn't reduce another's. You can feel the difference between real and fake energy in the way your soul responds. When you're around genuine people, you feel seen, understood, and valued. You can exhale. You can speak freely without fear that your words will be twisted. You can dream out loud without worrying that your dreams will be copied or criticized. But when you're surrounded by fake people, everything feels heavy. You start second guessing your words, editing your emotions, pretending to be smaller just to keep the peace. You start walking on spiritual tiptoes, trying not to trigger their insecurity. That's not friendship, that's performance. And you weren't created to perform. You were created to connect. The tragedy is that many people spend years entertaining fake energy because they mistake familiarity for authenticity. They think shared laughter means loyalty. They assume that just because someone was present in their pain, they're safe for their purpose. But realness is tested not in comfort, but in conflict. When pressure hits, fake people reveal their true colors. They disappear when your glow dims. They gossip when you're vulnerable. They compete when you're blessed. But real ones, they cover you in prayer when you can't find the strength to pray for yourself. They speak life into your silence. They remind you that your worth was never tied to their approval. There's something holy about being surrounded by real people. You don't have to defend your truth or downplay your joy. You can be honest about your struggles without being judged. You can be raw without being ridiculed. Real people allow you to rest. They don't drain you. They replenish you. They don't talk about you behind your back. They speak up for you when you're not in the room. They don't compete with your light. They reflect it back to you. When you forget, it's still shining. Being in the presence of real energy feels like healing. It's peace disguised as friendship. When you understand that real doesn't compete, you stop giving attention to those who do. You stop explaining yourself to people who misunderstand you on purpose. You stop trying to prove your heart to those committed to questioning it. You start realizing that the right people will never require you to fight for your place in their life. You won't have to convince them that your love is pure or your intentions are good. They'll know. They'll feel it. Because real recognizes real. You also begin to notice how different your spirit feels when you're around authenticity. You start craving depth instead of attention. You start preferring honesty over flattery. You stop being impressed by how loud someone is and start valuing how consistent they are. Realness doesn't perform, it shows up. It doesn't just talk about love. It proves it in the quiet moments, in the late night check-ins, In the unseen prayers, real people don't compete with you because they're too busy growing within themselves. They know that life isn't a race, it's a rhythm, and they dance with you in your season, even if their own song sounds different. Fake people mimic love, real ones mirror purpose. The imitation looks similar from afar, but it never carries the same depth. Fake people use words that sound right, but their actions betray their heart. They borrow the language of loyalty without living it. But real ones move differently. Their loyalty isn't loud, it's consistent. Their support isn't conditional, it's steady. They don't disappear when the attention fades or when the path gets rough. They stay, they build, they believe with you. They don't need to compete because they're confident in who they are. And maybe that's what growth teaches you, that you don't have to keep fake people close just because you've known them long. You start learning that real connection doesn't come from constant proximity. It comes from genuine alignment. You start valuing quiet authenticity over loud approval. You start realizing that love without sincerity is manipulation and friendship without truth is performance. Real doesn't envy, it empowers. Real doesn't compete, it complements. And when you finally surround yourself with people who are real, you'll notice how much lighter your spirit feels. Because truth always brings peace, and peace always recognizes its own. Letting go is one of the hardest lessons life will ever teach you, because it feels like losing a piece of yourself. We hold on to people, to places, to memories, not because they still serve us, but because they remind us of who we used to be. There's comfort in the familiar, even when it's breaking us, but growth and comfort can't coexist. Every time you try to drag the old into the new, you end up carrying the weight of what was never meant to come with you. Letting go doesn't always look strong. It looks like silent nights of wondering if you made the right choice, days of missing what hurt you, and moments of questioning whether peace is worth the loneliness. But it's in those quiet moments that strength is built, because you're learning to choose yourself over what drains you. Sometimes God removes people not because they were bad, but because they've completed their assignment in your life. You may not understand it in the moment, but distance can be divine. The people who once felt necessary can become heavy when their season expires. We think love means holding on no matter what, but sometimes love looks like releasing with grace. It looks like wishing someone well from afar. It looks like trusting that losing what's fake makes room for what's real. Growth requires space, and space often requires separation. If you never let go of what's gone, you'll never have hands free to receive what's next. Letting go to grow means trusting the process even when it hurts. You have to believe that endings are not punishments. They're preparation. Every closed door, every quiet goodbye, every unanswered message teaches you something about strength, boundaries, and self-worth. The pain you feel when something ends isn't the absence of love. It's the breaking of attachment. We get so attached to the idea of certain people being with us forever that we start believing we can't move forward without them. But the truth is, some people were only meant to teach you how to stand on your own. They were lessons, not life sentences. When you hold on out of fear, you block what was meant to find you through faith. There's a deep freedom that comes when you finally stop chasing what's already left. You stop replaying conversations in your head. Stop waiting for closure that may never come. Stop trying to fix what broke because it was meant to. You start to realize that peace is not found in the explanation. It's found in acceptance. You begin to understand that sometimes God closes doors not to punish you, but to protect you. He knows that if he let you stay, you'd keep shrinking to fit into spaces that no longer recognize your value. So he creates discomfort. He allows endings. He exposes truth so you can finally walk away from what was keeping you small. Letting go isn't just about people. It's about mindsets too. It's about releasing the belief that you're not enough. Letting go of the need to prove yourself, detaching from the idea that your worth is tied to how much you're needed by others. Growth begins when you stop apologizing for wanting peace. When you stop begging for understanding and start standing in clarity. When you stop trying to fit into circles that were never meant for your future. The longer you hold on to what's fake, the more it costs you what's real. Your energy, your joy, your destiny. Every season of elevation requires an exit from something that once felt safe. Letting go to grow means trusting that loneliness won't last forever. It's recognizing that emptiness isn't a curse, it's preparation for fullness. When you clear out what's counterfeit, you make room for the authentic. The space that once felt empty becomes sacred ground for your next blessing. Sometimes God delays the new until you release the old. You can't pray for peace while still clinging to what caused your pain. You can't ask for better while holding on to bitter. Letting go is an act of faith. It's saying, I don't know what's next, but I trust that what's coming is greater than what's gone. Growth asks for sacrifice. It demands that you leave behind comfort zones that feel like home, but no longer nurture your purpose. It asks you to walk away from conversations that no longer grow you, from relationships that no longer feed you, and from versions of yourself that no longer serve who you're becoming. You'll grieve what you lose. But you'll also start to see that what remains is stronger, wiser, more grounded. You'll start noticing how your spirit feels lighter when you stop forcing connections that resist alignment. You'll see how much peace floods in when you stop begging people to understand a vision they were never meant to see. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. You stop carrying the weight of expectations, disappointments, and what ifs. You stop trying to rewrite a story that's already finished. You start choosing yourself without guilt. It takes courage to release what no longer fits, especially when you built your identity around it. But freedom is on the other side of fear. The minute you let go, you make space for the divine to move. And when it moves, it always replaces loss with purpose. There's a beautiful stillness that comes after release. It's the moment when your tears dry, your heart steadies, and your soul begins to breathe again. You start realizing that nothing real ever leaves your life. Only what's pretending to be real does. You see that letting go wasn't punishment. It was promotion. You begin to recognize how protected you are, how guided you've been, and how necessary every ending was for your evolution. The very things you thought you couldn't live without become the things you thank God for removing. Because letting go isn't about losing. It's about making room for growth that's been waiting for you all along.